Welcome to another edition of BNL Sports Weekly. This week we're joined by a special guest, BNL Athletic Director Jeff Callahan, who will discuss the scheduling and the HAC and other topics. And we'll also have our usual highlights. We'll be right back with Jeff Callahan. Welcome back to BNL Sports Weekly. We are joined today by Bedford North Lawrence Athletic Director Jeff Callahan, and we're going to discuss the status of the entire athletic program and a few other questions that we have. Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Justin.
Let's start with the Hoosier Hills Conference in general and talk about the overall status of how you see the conference so far.
Well, the conference has been established for a long time, all the way back into the early 70s, and we've had some teams get out and teams come in, but right now we have 8 teams, and I know that there's a couple that have looked other places over the last few years for a different conference to possibly join, but as of right now, and we have a meeting actually on this Wednesday, our winter meeting for the Hoosier Hills Conference, it seems that it's pretty stable and pretty intact for the 8 teams moving forward. We are going to make some adjustments in football here next year, starting next year. Actually, some of us started this year, and the entire conference will adopt that next year, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But I think it's a pretty solid conference, top to bottom. A lot of sports, it's and a lot of our IHSAA tournaments now are like conference tournaments, for baseball and boys and girls basketball and even football, and it's just tough. It's a tough conference, and it's one that I think is pretty solid.
Well, you mentioned the football realigning into 2 conferences, or 2 divisions, which is going to change your scheduling. So, which is a challenge in itself because finding football games can be difficult. So, what kind of challenges are you faced with going to this format?
That's very true in the sense that there's one school that still is looking for an opponent next year for Week 3, but this started about 4 years ago, and really. We adopted the concept a couple of years ago now, and some of us, like I said, went into it last year, and that's why a lot of people are like, why didn't we play Jennings County in the conference last year, and we played Terre Haute South there in the middle of the season, and that's what it was. We said we're going to take Week 6 or Week 3 for the different schools, and if you can find an opponent, start finding them, because football is very, very difficult to find an opponent, just because, especially in Week 6, because so many schools play their non-conference at the first part of the year, and then weeks 2, 3, 4 are all the way the rest of the way through are conference games, and so that's why we moved Terre Haute South there, and we didn't play Jennings last year. And so basically what's happening is we're splitting the conference into 2 divisions. We've got Jeffersonville, Floyd Central, New Albany, and Columbus East on one side, BNL, Madison, Seymour, and Jennings County on the other side. And the way it's going to work is you play all 3 teams on your side, and then you'll play 3 of the 4 on the other side. So like next year, we will not play Jeffersonville in football during the regular season. And so we'll have 3 non-conference games. We'll have those 3 within our division, Seymour, Jennings, and Madison, and we'll play East, New Albany, and Floyd. So that's kind of how it's going to work, at least for the next couple of years. And we are going to talk about that on Wednesday at our meeting. What do we see for the years starting,
Will that rotate? Will you have a different team that you will not play every other year?
Well, it'll be, you'll have a team. So we won't play Jeffersonville for 2 years, and then they will drop, or they'll come back on the schedule, and then either New Albany Floyd or New Albany Floyd or Columbus East will go off the schedule. So basically, the way I look at it is 2 of the 8 years, our side is not going to have to play Columbus East. I mean, that's kind of. Part of the reason that, Madison and Jennings County, basically they came to us and asked, hey, what can they do to help them football-wise? This gives them an opportunity to play another non-conference school that they may have a better chance at competing with, more along their size. And then, that's but it's not every year. Like I said, they'll be off their schedule for 2 years and then back on for 6.
Well, it's just another scheduling challenge. I mean, scheduling has got to be hard enough without these, things being thrown in. But when you look at your overall scheduling, basketball, for example, there's some teams that drop off, there's teams that come on, boys and girls both. The boys have added a couple of really tough opponents this year. The girls have a team coming in from Ohio later this year, to play them. And so what are the challenges, and what do you look for when you try to put a schedule together?
Well, I tell you, I talk to the coaches a lot because I obviously, as a coach myself, I want to help them develop, who they need to play in order to prepare them, to when they get to the sectional time. And, kudos to Coach Seifers. He's not afraid to play. We're going to bring in defending state champ, and Warren Central here over Christmas break, and he's not afraid to play. And we're going to go down and play Castle, which cost us actually a home game because that was where we dropped off Greenfield Central. So, but that's who he wants to play, and that's who's going to help us, get better because. It's just like playing New Albany, Floyd Central, Jeffersonville in the sectional. There's no easy game, so why not challenge yourself during the regular season? Same with Coach Allen and the girls program, and a lot of people don't want to play us in girls for the last several years, because we've been good. And I will have to say, take my hat off to Jerry Hickey at Salem. They're adding us on, and they're really good.
They're good.
And
yes.
that's a game that a lot of people look at the schedule and be like, why are we playing Salem? Or but people don't realize that Salem is really good, and that won't be just a show up and win game.
Has the situation with the teams going up and down in class situation, has that changed your scheduling outlook at all? Because, like for example, Columbus East is supposed to be a 4A football team. They're going to be in 6A
Right.
next year. And basketball, you've got some teams that are going back and forth because of that the success factor rule. Do you take that into account at all?
Not really. I mean, that's like I said. I try to leave it up to the coaches and try to get who they want on the schedule the best we can. And we're in a situation here where we're a big school in a rural area, and we have to travel a lot. When the indie schools come down and they, I ask them how the bus ride was, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't think we were ever going to get here." And I say, we make that trip, 4 times in our conference, let alone, going to Terre Haute or going to Evansville. So, that's a challenge sometimes is to find schools to play because you'd like to stay as close as possible because that gives your fans a better chance to make it to the game and support the team, and then those long bus rides are not the most enjoyable.
You're in charge of every athletic program here, and of course you're coaching the baseball team in the spring as well. How do you see the overall strength and the overall health of the athletic programs here? The fall, we had a pretty good season in almost every sport. And so this winter, we got some excellent basketball teams. Wrestling looks improved. Swimming, of course, got some talented individuals there. So how do you see the overall health of our athletic programs?
I feel good about it. I think we've got some good coaches, working. We got a lot of good student athletes, and I emphasize that student part of it, because that's what we're trying to promote here is the student athlete. And I think that it's in good shape. It's very it goes in cycles. All sports do, especially in this area or in a school like ours. You're so they're going to cycle up or cycle down. But I feel like we've got some good people in place to head the programs. And what I want to do as the athletic director is whatever I can do to help the coach and help the student athletes, be successful on the playing field, in the pool, on the court, whatever the case may be.
Last question. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention BNL had a state championship this fall. Unified flag football, the first season, Bedford North Lawrence won that state championship. The IHSAA has made this kind of a point to add these sports. We have track, we have flag football now. I think there's maybe in the works for soccer and maybe another sport or two down the road. How important is this for the people here and for the state in general to have this included, this inclusion part?
Well, I think it's a very exciting time for for the IHSAA working with Special Olympics Indiana, the Student Advisory Committee, which is made up of high school kids from around the state. There's 18 of them on there, and they're the ones that are the driving force. Commissioner Bobby Cox, and putting this opportunity out there in track and, like you said, in flag football, and at some point it will continue to expand and add other sports. The great thing about it is it gets more kids involved, gives kids an opportunity to be involved in athletics. Maybe some of them that had never been involved in athletics or never felt like they had the opportunity. So I think that's great. The great thing we have here, we're very fortunate. Mike and Lori Branham are just unbelievable people. Put the coaching stuff aside, and they do a good job with that. But just great people to work with, and very supportive of the kids, and work the kids just like. They don't treat them any different. They treat it like it's a real sport. Our unified flag football team practice every day after school. And I bet that most of the schools didn't, but they do a great job, and it's an exciting thing. And I think what you're going to see with the unified flag football, kind of like with track, it went from 20 or 30 teams to now in track there's over 100 teams, and I think in unified flag football they'll see it and they'll be like, hey, we can put that together at our school.
Jeff, we appreciate your time. I know you're
Thank
busy. We will be right back with more highlights from last week with Bedford North Lawrence Sports in just a moment. The Indiana Football Coaches Association released their all-state football teams, and Bedford North Lawrence was well represented in Class 5A. Roman Weber, McCall Ray, and Drew Scheffler were all named to the senior all-state team, while offensive lineman Cale Bunch was named to the junior All-State team in Class 5A. BNL's girls basketball team, ranked 7th in the state, had two big games last week in the conference. First, they defeated Jennings County 62-45. Jory Allen had 19 points and Chloe McKnight added 15. On Saturday, BNL hosted New Albany and cruised to a 60-35 win as Jory Allen had 30 points. Bedford North Lawrence boys basketball had two big games last week, both on the road. On Friday, they visited rival Bloomington South and suffered a 75-66 loss. On Saturday, they bounced back with a road trip to Terre Haute North and won 57-45 as Brayton Bailey had 19 points. Bedford North Lawrence Wrestling had a big win over Scottsburg during a dual match during the week, and on the weekend went to Jeffersonville for the HAC duels and posted two victories there. Drake Huber at 160 pounds and Connor Smith at 145 are now 10-1 on the season. Coming up this week, every team will be in action on Saturday. Swimming and wrestling will have meets, and the boys basketball team will be at Columbus East on Friday night and play Castle in the Ford Center in Evansville on Saturday. Girls basketball will host Seymour in another conference game on Thursday, then travel to Indianapolis Attucks on Saturday afternoon. That concludes another edition of BNL Sports Weekly. Be sure to follow us on all the social media platforms and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you will be informed of all the live streaming events that we have coming up. Until then, thanks for watching.